It ties into what we do at the Singularity Group, which is measuring innovation. And I'll show you a little bit how we do that, but also why it's important and why it's a core focus, not just a satellite focus. I'm just going to run you through a few charts. Welcome to suggest the companies on this chart. If you want to play a guessing game with me, please shout. These are two energy companies over the past 7 years, their share price performance. The red company is an oil and gas company.
Shell.
Almost. The blue company is a renewable energy company. The red company invested 10 times in percentage of sales as much R&D as the blue company. The red company was the largest company in the world in 2014. Actually, 2011 through 2014 kept being one of the largest companies by market cap. And last year, the blue company, that spent way less money in R&D, in new technologies actually, but became much more of a tech company, overtook the largest company in the world in 2014 in market cap. And we're talking about ExxonMobil and NextEra Energy. I'm not making a renewable energy pitch, but this is, again, in the energy sector. I'll show you a few more companies as well. We're staying in the energy sector, oil refinery companies. These two companies had exactly the same business model 10 years ago. It's a share price again. The blue company, again here, invested 20 times less R&D as the red company. It's changed its business model, moved into new technologies, new materials. It became one of the world's largest biofuels companies. The red company is a Russian company. Anyone guess? We're talking about Neste, a Finnish oil refinery company, and Gazprom. Same business model 10 years ago, less investments in R&D. One became a tech company, the other one didn't. One became a renewable energy company, biofuels company, and the other one stayed an energy company. And I'm going to finish. We have the 20,000s of these charts, not 20,000s, but a few semiconductor companies, both tech companies. Red company here as well, 10 times as much R&D as the blue company. Blue company is one of the largest technology companies now in the world. The blue company makes almost 100% of its revenues with chips and software that are highly relevant in today's technologies. The red company used to be a leader in semiconductors, has some highly relevant semiconductors, but also some very little relevance, because they kept making a commoditized product that the rest of the world could also do. This is NVIDIA and Intel. I've been asked, actually, one of the questions all the speakers were asked to talk about was, what needs to change? And so I have a few suggestions. Oh, wait a second. Thanks for coming. You missed the guessing game, but they were really excited, the other ones. So what needs to change? I think the previous conversation or presentation showed this. Innovation does create value, and it's not only about investing in innovation. Actually, applied innovation is what creates value. And what I want to put into your minds, and many of you here are investors, but you're also companies building up an investment portfolio or building up a company. We're always talking about innovation and technology as a theme. It shouldn't be a theme. It's not a side bucket. It's not away from your core portfolio, something thematic. It's a constant. It's something that keeps going on. And it's the one thing we should focus on, especially if we're thinking about climate change and other sustainability issues. And so what becomes important is also what the previous conversation was about, is how do you measure innovation? How do you measure away the noise of the buzzwords and the hypes about new technologies in the market? And how do you capture what truly is innovation? How do you measure a company's true innovation? It's important. And my last suggestion is that ESG is not enough. You know, we're here at a conference where ESG definitely matters. Everywhere in the world, environmental, social, and governmental things matter. But really, what is usually the solution? What are these companies explaining to you when they say they have a solution for their ESG problems? It's usually a technology. And that brings us back to the idea that innovation needs to be measured. It needs to be happening. And not only ESG issues, but actually the fact that companies are applying innovation and that they can demonstrate it to you should be a key criteria in shareholder activism, whether at a large company or a small company. And so there's a list of companies here on the left. I'm trying not to make too many negative examples, but we know a few of them. These were both leaders in their respective technologies at the time when they existed. GlaxoSmithKline was the one company that had most patents and most R&D spending in mRNA vaccinations. They weren't the one that produced ones. And here on the right side, we see the examples that I just mentioned before in the before charts and a few more companies. These are all not tech companies, but they're highly innovative companies, not only in their sector, but they go beyond their existing sector that they're actually supposed to be in, and they're applying innovation. They're creating innovative products and services, and they're being innovative. And they're creating tremendous value in the stock market for investors, but also for humanity. And so let's take a look at, we looked at equity funds and also a few private equity funds, more than 100 of them. And we looked at how they actually measure innovation. And it's the same way they measure ESG, by the way. ESG criteria often measured by what management says, by what's written in a report, by the money that is spent on ESG solutions, by the money that is spent in R&D for ESG or not. This is true for tech. Growth investments, patents, the number of patents that a company or a country has filed is relevant for a measure of innovation. Company reporting plays a huge role. A lot of ETFs are built based on buzzwords or hypes or words, and natural language processing is sometimes applied to this, words that are used in a company report. And I don't need to tell you that all these things are just costs, right? So what we're measuring when we're trying to measure innovation, and the same is true for ESG, is we're measuring something that is a cash outflow. And most importantly, we're measuring something that can be manipulated. I'm not suggesting that management teams are trying to fool you, but it's just a long way from money being spent to money being made. And so we want to suggest or look at a better way to maybe measure innovation. And so maybe I'll do another question in the room, hoping for some more excitement. What did these technologies, the toilet is on there if you can't read it, electricity, running water, the vacuum cleaner, refrigerator, these are all exponential technologies. And you know, today, everybody's talking about new exponential technologies that we need to be exposed to in our tech portfolio. Everything's exponential, right? What do these technologies all have in common?
Tech with some kind of tech.
Yeah. What else? They have one thing in common, they happened, you know? We're talking about a lot of new technologies at conferences like this, where everybody wants to invest in biotech and AI and blockchain and all these things, and they're all exponential technologies. And I would argue, and you can see, you know, if you put all those new technologies on a line, I'm not talking about the word, but I'm talking about what's actually happening, is often things start to happen a little bit, they grow linearly, and they never penetrate the world. But exponential technologies, by definition, have an exponential or a steep penetration rate. And what they have in common is they happened. And so I'd like to suggest a way to look at measuring innovation that is away from the left-hand side of this chart, right? The left-hand side, I'm not saying it's wrong, but the left-hand side is where a technology hype emerges, a technology gets talked about, a lot of investors want to get involved, the media gets involved, a lot of R&D gets spent, and you have a money outflow. The orange lines go downwards. You have initial R&D, and the time from this technology's initial investment to it actually coming to fruition and to create shareholder value, which is investing is also about, this time gets underestimated. And now I'm not talking about the point on the right side where the technology actually fully fledged happens, right? Robotics, as we expect it to happen, humanoid robots doing everything for us, it's not happening yet. But a suggestion, a way to think about applicability is, there's an American saying, actually, that says, if there's no money in it, it's not happening. So the suggestion that we'd like to make is that you might want to look for an initial cash flow to happen, an initial transaction to happen. part of the value chain being bought. And that happens way beyond the technology is fully fledged, by the way. So if you look at value chains of products and services being transacted and sold, you might be on to the next technology that's actually doable and not just interesting. And actually in that phase, once, we've seen this many times, once you can see an initial value chain transaction happening of a technology, that's when it actually starts happening, and that's when it actually creates shareholder value.